Maybe you've heard you can get somewhere around 5% on cash right now, meaning liquid money. Not necessarily on savings accounts at the big banks, that sort of a thing, but things like money market accounts and a lot of the custodians. I know custodians like Fidelity, Charles Schwab, they've got some money market accounts paying in that 5% range. It changes a little bit. You can find some banks online that are paying around 5% on things like savings. You can get CDs, sometimes 5, maybe more. There are all of these safe money, if you want to call them, options, paying somewhere around 5%. So are you asking yourself, should I stick with the 5% safe, or with markets where they are right now, should I move into the market? What are my options? What should I do? Give me just a couple minutes. We'll go over that. So all of these options, paying historically a pretty good rate, at least recently in the past 20, almost 30 years, we're finally getting to decent rates on savings. And why did we get to those rates? Because of inflation, right? They pumped all of this money into the economy, stimulated it too much, and then they had to raise interest rates to slow the economy back down. And we're starting to see some of that, right? We talk about inflation. The inflation numbers are coming down, what they call year over year, which doesn't actually mean inflation is only 3 or 4% right now. It just means that the inflation rate only increased 3 or 4% above what it was a year ago, which is confusing but important. This is why you haven't seen the prices come down at the grocery store and on other things. So you're not really feeling this improvement that they're telling us about. So frankly, what it means when they say that inflation only ticked up 3 or 4%, it just means that it's less bad than it is when it's ticking up 8 to 9, but it's still bad. So if you add, let's just say it was 8% a year ago to 3 or 4% this year, technically that means it's 12, right? It's because we can all add 8 plus 4 is 12. But when it comes to investing, there was a benefit there when it came to interest rates, right, on these fixed accounts. And I'm talking to people week after week that are going, hey, listen, 5% is pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty good. And they're worried. They're worried about the economy. They're worried about markets, which have been doing well. Frankly, a lot of people are distrusting, including us, of the market in the sense that it's a lot higher than it was a year ago. But to define why it's higher, is it higher for a good reason or a bad reason? Yes, people are spending, but where are they getting the money, right? We've seen interest rates go higher, and we've seen people continue to spend, but we've also seen debt go up, right? So if you're borrowing money to maintain your lifestyle, you can only borrow so much money before you can't borrow anymore, and everything slows down and it becomes a problem. So if I'm looking at the market right now, and I know I could tuck my money away somewhere, let's just say the interest rate is 5%, and in order to invest, you're going to have to pay me, in other words, in order to invest in the market, if I'm going to take risk, you're going to have to pay me more than 5%. And the more risk I take, the more you're going to have to pay me. So you need a way to measure the amount of risk that you're taking and the reward that you're likely to get. And currently, with interest rates or with fixed rates where they are right now on these safe money accounts, you should use 5% as your baseline. So if I can get 5% taking no risk, how much risk would I have to take to get 8%? You need to be able to find that. And if you're working with an advisor, the advisor needs to be able to explain to you how much additional risk you have to take to get to 8. I happen to know there are investments where, in my opinion, you don't have to take a lot of extra risk to get from that 5% to 8%. But not everybody looks at all of the investment options that are available. And in some cases, I've seen people taking way more risk than they should to get to that 8%. But then take it a little bit further. How much risk would you have to get or have to take to get from 5% to 10%, right? So 10% is twice 5. Do you have to take twice the risk? Maybe. But if you understand all of the investment options, maybe not. What do you have to do to get to, again, it just keeps going on and on, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 20%, to get 20% of my investment. How much risk do I have to take? Well, clearly you're going to have to take more risk to get 20% than you're going to be at zero risk at 5. But if you can find somebody that's going to explain all of the investment options to you, of course you'd rather get 20% than 5%, but you'd also, rather not lose half your money in the process. And so it's this balancing act that a good advisor, a true fiduciary should be able to sit down and walk you through all of these options and just help you make an informed decision. So maybe 5% is enough for you. Maybe you don't need to take any risk to be successful in your personal economy, right? In your retirement or what you're looking to accomplish. But maybe you need 7 or 8%. Maybe you like the idea of getting 20. But understand, if you're going to get the 20, know how much risk you're taking to get the 20. If I looked at all of the investment options out there that, let's just say, are likely to return 20% next year, if somebody came to me and they said, well, I've got these 2 investments, both of them are likely to return 20% next year, which one do you want? I would just say, well, put half my money in one and half my money in the other one. They're both averaging 20%. I don't want all my eggs in one basket, right? I just want to spread it around. I want to be more diversified. But if I looked into both of those investments, and although both of them are paying 20% or likely to pay 20%, if one of them's half as risky as the other one, I'm going to put all of my money in the one that has half the risk to get my 20%. It doesn't have to be 20. You can use the same mindset when it comes to making 10% or 8%. So understand returns, understand how much risk you're taking to get those returns, and then understand what all of the other alternatives are that are they're paying the same return or have a similar return, and choose the one that has the least amount of risk. So highest return, least amount of risk. Certainly you want the lowest fees you can get and liquidity. If you can keep that in your portfolio and your investments, you're much more likely to be successful. Thank you for watching. Go to guardingyournestegg.com for your free and objective personal financial plan.